have to go live at 7 o'clock.
I'm actually preparing to
Go
live
to
stream
the
right now.
gathering. Go to the gathering Facebook, and it's being prepared right now. Yeah, the Gathering Womanist Church on Facebook. Go to Facebook, type in the Gathering, like you watching church on Sunday. Oh, on Saturday. YouTube. Oh, the app. Mhm. Okay, it's gonna go live. You'll see it in a second. Correct.
Oh, I'm working on it. I don't know what the heck happened here.
It's gonna come up.
Just tell them to be patient.
It was always a bigger ordeal for us to get on her Zoom.
Let me see. What did I do? Send to my Restream account. Did I do a different email? What's happening here? Okay, I don't know what's going on here. Just set this up. Okay, I don't know what's happening. Just a second. Okay, so what is stream? YouTube.
Is it streaming on YouTube as well?
Yeah, both of them.
Both of them. Okay.
Well, it should be. Let's see. Custom live streaming service. It should be live now. Hold on, let me go. It should be on the Gathering.
Okay,
Yeah,
the Gathering YouTube is live. I see you.
You see me? Well, let me get me off.
It looks like it's a lag. Said a woman said it went live 16 minutes. Oh, you know what? Okay, here we go. We're live. It's me. There's Pastor Terry. Hi, Pastor Terry, and PhD Reed. So we are in the YouTube world. Can y'all see us? Can you hear us? Okay, so she went off. Is she? I wonder. Because we're live. Mr. Trace, I don't know. Is she waiting to do something different? Oh, okay. We were waiting to see if all was well with you on the Gathering end. Okay, let me just check to see here, the Gathering live. Okay, yes, so we are live. Okay, here we go.
Okay, Reverend Tracy, you can go ahead.
Greetings and God bless to everyone who is on here for our final biblical exploration of the year. This is a gathering, a Womanist church in Dallas, Texas, and we are having our final Bible exploration from the book, The Hero and the Whore, Reclaiming Healing and Liberation Through Stories of Sexual Exploitation in the Bible, written by Camille Hernandez. Tonight, our study is being facilitated by Minister Alexis Roan. And we are so excited and ready to hear what Minister Alexis has to share. So we will kick it to you, Minister Alexis.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Minister Tracy. I so appreciate you and love my faith community here at the gathering. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. It has been quite the experience, and I was so grateful when I was able to go through all of the women that we would be studying this year for the entire 2024 season. And I picked the character studies that most resonated with me, where I really wanted to know how Dr. Hernandez was going to lead me into a new or a renewed, reframed idea about these characters. And so the very last person that we will be studying tonight is the woman caught in adultery. Before we get started, I would like to, in the form of offer a prayer, but in the form of gratitude. With gratitude to the creating God who meets us where we are, but doesn't leave us where she finds us. I pray that for all of the ways that we are going to have this, this amazing experience, that you would just know that it's okay wherever you are. Okay, so there are a couple of things that are happening here. Let me just quit real. Minister Tracy, are you going to be the one to admit folks in? Because I
I'm
keep
doing
hearing
it.
the, oh, are you? Okay,
I'm
okay,
doing
great,
it.
great.
I let them
Okay.
in. Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay, awesome. Um, Technology, you gotta love it. Okay. So wherever you are, wherever you show up in the space, you are here, you are welcomed. Thank you so much for being. And I pray that you feel anchored in the fact that God knows where you are, and that everything that we're going to be discussing this evening is going to bless you or incite you, enrich you, renew you in some way. That is my hope. With gratitude to the creating God who sees us, who knows where we are, but doesn't leave us where she finds us. Ashe, Namen. All right. Something is happening here with my technology. Hang on one second. I am going to. Okay. There we go. Here we go. All right. So highlights for the story of the woman caught in adultery. Dr. Hernandez's frame, her content comes from the book of John, chapter 8, verses 3 through 11. And these are some of the highlights. She says the scribes and Pharisees brought a woman who'd been caught in adultery and made her stand before all of them. Then Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground. But they kept on questioning him. Jesus straightens up and says, "Let anyone among you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." Once again, Jesus bent down and continues writing on the ground. When they heard it, they went away, one by one. The woman was standing before Jesus. The woman was standing before Jesus. Jesus straightens up and asks, "Where are they? Has no one condemned you?" She said, "No, sir. No one, sir." Jesus said, "Neither do I. Neither do I condemn you. Go your way, and from now on, do not sin again." Now, one of my favorite professors, Dr. Ralph Basui Watkins, at Fuller Seminary, he's now at Columbia in Atlanta, or in the Atlanta area. He had this thing when he was doing a lecture, and we know that we were going to be discussing scholarship, but he had his own ideas. He would frame everything he said by this. He give this frame. He'd say, "Let me confess my filter," and whenever he said, "Let me confess my filter," you knew that you could trust what he was saying was true to him, and the way that he was seeing the scholarship. So in this text, Dr. Camille Hernandez, in confessing her filter, She says this is what she's after at the end of the day. Everything that we're about to discuss is it's to get to this. She says, I'm in the process of building a love ethic that rebukes shame, reduces harm, and celebrates our embodiment. I absolutely love that. She's in the process of building a love ethic that rebukes shame, reduces harm, and celebrates our embodiment. But here is my filter. One of the reasons why this particular narrative was attractive to me was from a situation that happened right as I was leaving the West Coast and was out to uproot my life and head to Raleigh, North Carolina. It was the last storytelling show that I was to be a part of. It was the theme was why I love Black women. And as we were in our tech rehearsal, one of the storytellers is a Muslim woman who is a female sexuality educator. You can follow her on Instagram. Her name is, I think her hashtag is hashtag Village Auntie. So she was on the bill with the storytelling series. And she had this this thing that just kind of and I couldn't figure out what was going on with me when she was talking about it. We were like on a break from the tech rehearsal, and she was talking about one of her more popular workshops, and it was discussing all of the ways that a woman's body is designed for pleasure. Too often we hear about women's bodies being about like nurturing others and, you know, bearing children. But she was like, we have a part of our body that is strictly for pleasure. In fact, she said our body was built to experience 14 different types of orgasms. So everyone in the tech rehearsal, they're like, whoa, they're just kind of going like they're just really having this very robust conversation. And I sat there quiet. And I wondered if they were thinking, oh, Lord, there's the Christian minister over there, like being all, you know, prudish. But that wasn't it. It wasn't that I was being prudish. I didn't know what was going on. So I go home after the tech rehearsal and I'm thinking like, what am I feeling? What's going on? I wake up the next morning before the sun comes up. I go out to South Mountain to do my, you know, regular prayer walk. And all of a sudden it hits me. I raise my hand to heaven. I look up and I yell, 14 orgasms. And I just broke down crying because while others were talking about marriages, I'd been married. Everyone wanted the fancy wedding. Okay, I had the fancy wedding. I had all of the things. What I had not had was a partner where I was able to experience this robust pleasure and be able to chronicle them 14 different orgasms. And so from that day forward, when I prayed for what it was that I wanted in a partner, I was like, Lord, you know, I am still pining for them 14 O's. May it be so. What I love about Dr. Hernandez and the way that she has framed the conversation and the woman caught in adultery, she has centered pleasure. She centered pleasure. She opens with the chapter talking about pleasure activism. And she defines pleasure activism, or she says of pleasure activism, a couple of things that I thought were really noteworthy. She says, the best gift I can give to my younger self is to deconstruct my own understanding of, and this, why is this word? I'm so sorry, y'all. My screen is blocked and I cannot see what that word is. Understanding of, anyone who's off screen, can you tell me what that word is? Deconstruct my own understanding of.
The best gift I can give my younger self is to deconstruct my own understanding of purity.
Purity. Thank you. Okay, I finally just corrected the thing. All right, here we go. So I'm now full screen. The best gift I can give to myself. Thank you, Dr. Ari. Best gift I can give to my younger self is to deconstruct my own understanding of purity. And then she describes Jesus as a pleasure activist. And she says to be a pleasure activist is to activate for the pleasure of all, advocate for the pleasure of all, and to also pursue advocacy work with pleasure as a liberating practice. And then she concludes with expanding my spirituality beyond the paradox that requires me to read the life of Jesus in ways that reject policing and, quote, carceral logics. Now, my mother is on this call right now. Hey, Mama, how you doing? And one of the things that she will always do is whenever I use my multi-syllabic words, she's like, okay, now why can't you just break that down like a fraction? And so this was one of those words I could figure out, like carceral. I was like, okay, like incarcerated, you know, that there's something that's there. But I literally had to look this word up, carceral logic, because I fully wanted to understand, make sure that I understood what Dr. Hernandez was saying. The carceral logic is a system of thinking based on the idea that punishment, surveillance, and incarceration are necessary to maintain safety and order. One of my favorite books is Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter, and it's an example of carceral logic. For anyone who has not read it, the gist of the plot is Hester Prynne is a beautiful young woman whose husband is, she's in the New World. Her husband is still in England, and she ends up pregnant. And they're like, oh, you committed adultery. And so they be sure in this new colony to establish two things, a graveyard and a prison. And Hester Prynne is the first person to go to prison, and her crime is adultery. So she has the baby in prison, baby Pearl. She comes out. Her punishment for the rest of her days is to wear a big scarlet A on her clothing. And she shocks the crowd when she opens up and she shows the A, and the A is very ornate. And the women are like, I can't believe she ain't got no shame on her. And they're just going on and on and on about how the kind of woman that she is, like wearing this pride about this scarlet letter. And then they're looking at the pastor, Pastor Dimsdale, and he's all broken up. And they're like, oh, poor Pastor Dimsdale. Look at him. He has this sin in his congregation. What is he going to do? That was their frame. Hester Prynne is the sinner, and Pastor Dimsdale, in their thoughts, is the saintly pastor. What they don't know is he's also the father of Hester Prynne's daughter. It fascinated me that they felt like this crime is so visceral, we have got to, and using carceral logic, Hester Prynne has to wear this A. She's got to be in prison. There's got to be consequences for this kind of activity, for this new colony, to maintain safety and order. And it's a fabulous story. And I'm probably due for a reread. But it's an example of a system of thinking based on the idea that punishment, surveillance, and incarceration are necessary to maintain safety and order. But as I was reading this chapter, I consistently went back to poet and prophet Audre Lorde and this particular quote, where she says, if we do not define ourselves for ourselves, we will be defined by others for their use and to our detriment. Being defined by others. Still quick reflection. Post in the chat, or anyone who is currently in the Zoom room, feel free to come off the mic. And let's talk through, what does it mean, not so much what does it mean to be defined by others, but what are the benefits to them when they get to define us? And what are the consequences to us? Anyone in the chat, or come off the mic. What are the benefits to them when they get to define us? What are the consequences to us when we allow them to define us?
Well, I think that the benefit to them is that they basically get to define us however they want. Like, we are defined as, Black people defined as savages, defined as less than intelligent. Women are defined as hypersexual, or all the things. And the consequences is that either we acquiesce to those definitions or we're forced to. But what it also means is that we are not allowed to be our authentic selves, however that shows up.
Huge consequence. Absolutely. Thank you, Minister Tracy. Others, what are the benefits to them when they get to define us, and what are the consequences to us when they define us?
So far, I'm not showing any responses on Facebook or YouTube.
Okay. Okay. Well, one of the big things that that Dr. Hernandez reflects on, one of the consequences is the purity culture. And the purity culture is where we take the Jesus narrative and we frame it according to the gospel of purification. And the gospel of purification says, if we can control people's action by getting them to align with purity in speech, dress, and sexuality, then everything will be great. If we
Okay,
can,
I do see some responses now. They were coming a little slow. Do you
okay.
want me to give them to you
Yes, would
now?
you please? Yes, yes.
Okay, on YouTube, Omalara, I hope I said her name right. It's such a beautiful name. Omalara says the benefit to them. They get to decide our story and make themselves look like saints.
Exactly. They get to be the
She
saints and
also
we are the
said,
sinners. Yes.
yeah, she also said consequences. We learn this story, and then over time, generations start to believe the stories.
Yep. Yep.
Then Brianna T says, when you are defined by someone else, you don't have a voice in the definition. They're whatever their mind conceives of you.
Yep. Exactly.
Let me
Wow.
run back to Facebook and see if there's a late comment. Okay,
Okay.
I don't see anything on Facebook. Okay,
Oh,
thank
okay.
you all for those comments.
Yes, yes. Thank you. And y'all continue to just put those comments in, and we're gonna get to all of them. So we're just gonna be fluid here tonight. So yeah, please continue to as you join us. For those of you who've just joined us, please place your comments or your questions even in the chat room. But again, Dr. Hernandez talks a lot about the consequences of the purity culture, and that did seem to do a lot of harm for her as the Christian witness discussed purity, but her liberation came through the writings of feminist rabbis on the concept of purity in the laws. And she talked about in the Jewish construct there concerning purity, the concept of purity, there is the tumah, which is to be impure, versus the tehor, that's pure. So the tumah versus tehor. The problem is that in our Christian teachings, there are these binary constructs of impure, meaning bad, and pure, meaning good. And the biblical references of impurity include seeing or touching a dead body, a woman who is on her menstrual cycle, and a man who ejaculates sexually. So those are biblical references with regards to impurity. But the correct way to see the construct of impurity is to recognize that it is simply a part of the human cycle. It is not bad, it is not evil, it is just human. And in her reframing impurity, she calls the human experience, she's describing like the different parts of the human experience. It's not bad. The human experience to honor the dead, to have sex, to give birth, that's not bad. But biblically, the frame is like being impure, but none of that it's not impurity as a negative. So these experiences aren't bad. What they are finite. And she says that that they prepare us for a deeper connection with God when we are, quote, tehor. So there is a difference, but it's not bad versus good. It's just the human experience. And then,
Minister Alexis, we do
yes,
have one more comment. I'm sorry.
it's okay.
Carol posted, she said, in both stories, the male faces no consequences.
Mm. In both stories of referencing
The benefit
the benefit
or
of them, the
yeah,
benefit or the consequences
yeah,
in both.
yeah.
Absolutely. Isn't that interesting? We're going to touch on that here
Yeah.
in a little bit. So yes, thank you, Carol. When Dr. Hernandez, she wraps up the whole construct of the Tumah versus the Tehor by saying that she goes, I choose to believe that the law of Moses gifts us with the holiness of knowing our humanity and contemplating how finite it is. So again, it's not impure, bad, pure, good. The idea is not to be pure. The idea is to recognize and to value our whole humanity. But then she begins to break down what is an adulteress. And she says that according to her research, An adulteress is one who has sex before marriage, one who is cheating on her, or one who has been assaulted or raped. But we don't know with the woman caught in adultery where she falls, which one of those definitions she falls under. But we don't know her, but we do know the shame that's placed on her. And when I was doing a biblical character study on, because it struck me, I listened to the Washington National Cathedral's morning devotional Monday through Friday, and today, as a matter of fact, this morning, they talked about in the season of Advent the story of Joseph. And so as I was preparing for our time tonight, I had already completed my notes. It struck me the similarities in men in this construct, in this particular milieu, with the same a corpus, the same laws, the same standards, the history. In the narrative of the woman caught in adultery, the scribes and the Pharisees, they made her stand before the group. That was their action concerning her. But in the Matthew chapter 1 narrative, where Mary is engaged to Joseph, the scripture says, because Joseph, her husband, was faithful to the law and yet did not want to expose her to public disgrace, he had in mind to divorce her quietly. Consider their two responses. Everyone is committed to faithful execution of the law. But how do you stand on interacting with women? Do you want to bring shame? Or are you decent enough to say, we can do this lawfully, we can execute the law, but I don't want to expose her to this public disgrace. So I'm going to go ahead and divorce her quietly. Now, of course, the angel of the Lord Gabriel comes to Joseph in a dream, and the rest of the story goes on. But even before the spiritual encounter, you have a man who's committed to honoring the law, but also just being decent. I'm going somewhere with that. I feel like Dr. Hernandez is leading us somewhere with regards to this, even though she does not reference this. There is something very specific that I believe gives us light and hope. And then we go into
we have another comment.
Yes.
By Reverend Bianca. She says, to add to the idea that men did not experience consequences, but men are not considered an adulterer. They are positioned as victims of adultery and victims of prostitution, etc.
Absolutely. They are the victims. And that is what the patriarchy allows. I'm going to say the patriarchy with where indecent people are not in alignment, because I wonder if there were more Josephs that were in that space, would they have operated in the same way? Was there something about the power that these men had that, and again, I know that they were trying to, trip up Jesus and all of that. But if we have a lot more Josephs, what does this situation look like?
Well, Mr. Alexis, I actually have a question about that. I guess my problem is the idea of Joseph wanting to divorce Mary quietly, and that being the decent thing to do. I guess my question is, how quiet is it going to remain? And, maybe he's not bringing her before a group of men or something, but it's not like it's going to be kept a secret. And that's, I guess that's my little thing about that, because that bothers me.
And what's interesting, that's a great point. And I didn't even think about it from that frame. I was thinking that the expositor says, yet did not want to expose her to public disgrace. So I'm wondering if there were multiple approaches to this situation, and he chose to not do the visceral or the more outlandish kind of a thing. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that he had a dream. And he could have blamed that dream, like whatever, like when the angel Gabriel came to him, oh, I just had a bad meal. I said, oh, that's like, this is crazy thoughts or whatever. He could have dismissed that. And so there is something about the fact that in me not wanting to live in this binary idea of, everyone is going to react this one way. I'm curious, but thank you for bringing that up and confessing my filter. I do want to almost sanitize Joseph in this space. So
Yeah,
thank you for chin
yeah.
checking
Can I
me.
say
Maybe
something?
he don't
Yeah,
get them cool points. Yes, Dr. Irie.
yeah. We want to make Joseph the hero.
Yes.
Uh,
Because
and th- but
the text does. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
that's a great point. That's a great question, and that is, see, that's why womanist biblical interpretation is so important, because
Yes.
we come with questions, right?
Yes.
We critically engage the text, and so thinking about that based on the law, she would have been worthy of stoning,
Yes.
right? So Joseph didn't want to do that.
Right.
He didn't want to get stoned,
Right. Right.
but at some point people were going to know that she was divorced.
Mm.
So there's no way that not to get public at some point.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So
yes.
that was a good point. Thank you for bringing it up.
Yes.
I never
Yes.
thought about
Thank
that.
you. Yeah. Great point, Mr. Tracy. Thank you. Now here's our next, here's the next level. She's ramping it up here. And she goes hard with this one. She poses the following question: how do non-traditional sexual practices expand our frames on the concepts of sex and sin? The way that Dr. Hernandez entered that conversation, her healing experience is to attend a trauma-informed consensual kink workshop. Trauma-informed consensual kink, in the trauma-informed consensual kink workshop, she recognized the harm that was done to her and to others concerning the teachings and the traditional frames around sex and sexuality. And then her solution was to go outside of the tradition in search of healing. And there were a lot of very interesting things that she found. So I'm like, brava, Dr. Hernandez, for not insisting that I've got to talk to a Christian sex therapist. I've got to talk with a Christian. She went completely outside of the tradition, recognizing that everything is questionable. And how do I break out of this thinking and these ideas that I have lived with this whole time, and find my way to liberation, to a liberated thinking around sex and sexuality? And I thought it was fascinating that she, number one, that there is a trauma-informed workshop on consensual kink. That was like all kinds of fascinating for me, but it did some amazing things for her. But here's my personal experience with, I call it a professor, a white man with a kink in me. There is something very profound that happens when you are introduced to people who have a different approach to sex and sexuality. I was in a class, and my professor was talking about the practice of employers going to their new hires or their soon-to-be new hires social media accounts and scouring the pages, trying to see like who they are, like what kind of stuff do they post. And he felt like this was fair game. And I was like vehemently opposed to the idea that someone who posted that they have a need for talent, I show up and I say, I have this talent. And as we're making the deal, they want to know what I do outside of doing the work for them. Like somehow that is relevant. And I was pretty passionate about why that was a bad idea. And he was like, look, it's the way of the world. And I felt really bad that I could not tell him about how unfair and how unjust was that practice, because at that time, I happened to be dating an older white guy who had a kink for crushing. And crushing is it's a foot fetish where you crush small animals underfoot, and that is sex for you. Now, I had never heard of sex and sexual gratification beyond two people coming together with their sexual parts. That was how I understood sex and sexuality. Dating this guy, I realized that number one, he trusted me to share this with me. And number two, while all of my friends were like completely grossed out by it, I was really fascinated by it. And I asked, how long have you been into this? And he's like, my whole life, like this has been my thing. Now, it fascinated me that I could not share this with the professor in this classroom to further make my argument, because this older white man also happened to be pretty high up in city government in the city that I was living in at that time. And so I didn't want to have this conversation with them because I didn't want anybody like poking around like, ooh, who's she talking about? Who's she talking about? Like trying to figure, look, scouring my social media pages to see like who I'm dating, like what pictures do I have of older white guy, and oh, is she talking about him? And they'd be able to like to trace it. So I had to sit with the fact that there is a man who is doing what other people would perceive like some absolute craziness. It is his kink. It is his sexual gratification. But he gets to live on his own terms and nobody is checking, his thing. I was just fascinated by how it impacted me, how compassionate I became, how I'm like, wow, it must feel a particular way to have this desire and then to be dating me, and I'm not crushing no bugs, but like I'm not doing that, like that's not what we doing. Like, and how he would also try to invite me to like, oh, my friend has a cabin up in the woods and like let's go and hang out for the weekend. I'm like, not with them animals. I wanted to only be in spaces that I can control, and that was in the 5-star restaurant experiences that I was having all over that city. But I was amazed at how my empathy expanded, because I now understood that sex happens in a variety of ways. And if I didn't know about this particular practice of sex and sexuality, I was like, what else don't I know? What can we learn from kink? According to Dr. Hernandez, kink is the experience of being expansive. It's breaking out of these binary constructs. And then she insists, and I so co-sign on this. She says, pleasure lives in the body. Pleasure requires us to be present with ourselves and to ask, is this okay? Or am I comfortable? Do I want this right now? Kink is an expansive experience. Thoughts, questions, comments, anyone concerning kink?
Bianca Richardson on Facebook asked the questions. When we talk non-traditional, are we talking about the Kama Sutra from other cultures?
Great question. That's fascinating. And I think that Dr. Hernandez is coming from her conservative evangelical purity culture training. And so I can imagine that for her pre-tick workshop, I'm sorry, Kama Sutra is probably something that she would not consider because, Jesus and all of that.
but now post-kink workshop,
post-kink,
right.
Absolutely. Post-kink, it's all expansive. Absolutely. Post-kink,
right.
It is about honoring the fact, like I said in that story about the 14 O's, our bodies are designed for pleasure. Women have one part that is exclusively about bringing us pleasure. One part, it has no other role.
No other role.
But the fact that we love Jesus and we show up and we do all of the things and we deny the pleasure that our bodies are designed to experience, how do we break out of that? The Kama Sutra, and I believe exploring other cultures is absolutely one of those ways. The key, what she's leading us to is a liberated way of thinking and being and engaging our bliss.
So,
right.
Minister Alexis, first of all, let me just say, color me intrigued by the 14 O's. Um,
Color me intrigued.
Oh yeah,
color
yeah,
me
oh, absolutely.
intrigued.
Listen, that is my
I,
prayer. Listen, I told the
I'm
Lord what I
very
know. Yeah,
interested in that. But see, what I find also uh funny, the whole social media, scouring someone's social media as a means to um eliminate them from contention for employment, I find to be reprehensible.
I agree.
Um, because, like you said, what you do off of, when you're not on the clock is your own business.
Absolutely.
And third of all, the whole idea about pleasure, and the thing about it is, like, pleasure is kept from us
Mm,
as women.
mm.
Men don't exclude themselves from any
Pleasure.
pleasure that they
Right,
want. They
Hmm.
are able
right.
to find it wherever. But
Yes.
it's women who are not allowed to experience pleasure. I mean,
Mm,
why else would you have these cultures where there's female circumcision
mm.
to keep the woman from having pleasure?
Pleasure. Right. Exactly. Exactly. And what are the excuses for the women who live in cultures where that is not a practice? What is our excuse? Who's defining, who is externally defining us for their benefit and to our demise? Why are we permitting that? I thought it was really interesting that when you said we are we denied or are we not interested in our own liberation? Are we waiting for someone else to give us permission? Are we waiting for the courage? Are we waiting, look, for that female sexuality workshop to show up in the city, like near you? Because that was the other thing that, the village auntie was talking about. That's how we got started on this conversation, was all of the ways that her workshops are so popular. Even the husbands will like send her checks and pay. I want my wife to come to your workshop because I want her to have pleasure. What's our excuse
Wow.
for not engaging that?
I think there's too many instances where we're housing the oppressor
Mm,
Hmm.
within
mm,
ourselves.
mm,
Hmm.
mm. We are housing the oppressor.
Yeah,
Mm,
and I also think there's such a lack of information and education that we are exposed to, right? I think there's so much we know as women, but I think our society is structured in such a way to keep us ignorant to our own bodies. And it's not until we attend a class like this, right?
yes,
Or we go to a kink workshop, or
right,
somebody gives us a book about, that we
right.
become enlightened,
Yes,
right?
right.
Then we can take responsibility for
Yes,
what we do or don't do. But a
yes,
lot of it, I think, is we're socialized in a culture that wants to keep women, that is set up, that is structured in such a way that women are in a position of ignorance to
yes.
our own bodies
Mm, mm, yes.
and what pleasure is for us, right?
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
and pleasure is demonized also,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Pleasure for women is demonized.
yes, yeah, yeah. One of my favorite essays, The Uses of the Erotic by Audre Lorde, where she
Yes.
talks about the erotic being feared and
Mm-hmm.
reduced and limited to, the to sexuality, when really it is the unlimited capacity to experience joy. But that joy, she says, does not need to be labeled spouse, God, or afterlife. She says the way music makes me move, the way I build a bookshelf. Um, for me, it is when I am taking my sunrise prayer walk in my prayer garden at the North Carolina Museum of Art, and I'm listening to the birds symphony. And I am, because I've been there for all of the seasons, I'm watching. I know exactly where the goldfinches perch in the spring, and I know the Moorish area where the grosbeak, the grosbeak the indigo grosbeak is hiding. I know where the hawks are. It is. I am having an absolute amazing experience, and I'm doing it solo. It is this capacity for me to be able to say, I don't need anybody to get up with me at sunrise. If that's not your thing, okay, bet. This is me defining what feels good to me and going out and doing that. And what I love about how Dr. Camille Hernandez is breaking down the experience for the woman caught in adultery. I love that she is breaking down this idea of pleasure and also agency, but also advocacy as well. So
We
concerning,
do have two more. We have two more comments if you
yes,
want them.
absolutely, I do.
One, okay. Reverend Bianca says religion robs women of full becoming. And then Omalara says, I guess because of the way we've been socialized, we're swung in a complete opposite direction from pleasure, and that we were trained to completely ignore and deny our sexuality.
Wow. True and tragic. Absolutely.
True and tragic.
True and tragic.
Well said.
But concerning the woman caught in adultery, we have this really great foundation. Again, we've confessed our filter. We've built it up. We framed it according to how Dr. Hernandez has felt like is going to help us get to that liberated sexual ethic. She says concerning the woman caught in adultery, where the scripture says, the Pharisees' intentions were to shame her, but to trap Jesus. But Jesus's response was to reframe the situation for the scribes and the Pharisees. That is a very important part of the liberation that is going to make it possible for this woman and other women. I wonder, with the reframing of this situation for them, did they do this again? Jesus says something very specific for him. We're going to get to that in a minute. But he reframes the situation for them. That is a very important part of not so much requesting or requiring permission, but they too are a part of the context, a part of the beloved community. So there is a word that they need to hear. And they heard that word, and there was a shift. Now, when Dr. Hernandez talks about, she does this, for those of you who've read the chapter, she does this, it feels like kind of a call and response. And she's like, she's saying that Jesus is saying in freeing the woman, are you going to advocate for others? I don't condemn you. Are you going to do this? Are you available for this? I don't condemn you. Are you I don't condemn you. But here's the interesting thing, sexual agency versus sexual ethics. When we have gone through all of the women in this book, we celebrated Vashti when she declined the invitation to parade naked around a bunch of drunk men. Okay, we celebrated that. We mourned for Bathsheba, who was powerless to reject the invitation of a king who also happened to be a friend of God's. We mourned Salome, a hyper-sexualized prepubescent girl caught in the middle of butt-hurt adults. But the woman caught in adultery, this feels like a condemnation of the system and a directive to not do things that could disrupt the more important things that we are called to do. I feel like when Jesus is talking to the woman caught in adultery, he's saying to her, hey, listen, the system is jacked up, but guess what? This jacked up system, when you do these jacked up things, you bear the brunt of it. So while we are dismantling the system, I'm gonna need for you to don't placate to it, because you have important things to do. My sanctified imagination, I don't see Jesus as saying it's not a big deal. I see him saying the bigger deal is the system. I'm hearing everyone in the comments and in the responses say to talk about the system and all of the ways that the system has denied us the pleasure. The system has given us a frame. The system has shackled us. And in this narrative, Jesus chin checks the system by giving the power brokers within the system a new way of seeing. Where Dr. Hernandez and I are absolutely in agreement and alignment, she says this: I'm finding holiness. I'm finding holiness in discovering our unknown kinks and creating systems of safety that reshape our identities away from white imperialist, cisgender, patriarchal created archetypes forced on us and our ancestors. Here's what is fascinating, though, about her concluding sentiment. Sis says, I will always be a whore to them. And that broke my heart, because I was trying to figure out, why are we continuing to be externally defined? Why are we continuing to say of a corrupt system, I have to show you that I'm not what you think? Why do we care what they say? If we do not define ourselves for ourselves, we will be defined by others to their benefit and to our detriment. But in a communal way of a communal wisdom that's regurgitated in popular art forms like Tyler Perry's Medea goes like this. They say, it's not what they call you, it's what you answer to. Questions, comments, reflections, what we feeling?
I think I want to elaborate a little further on Jesus. I'm sorry, on the conversation where Jesus says, "Neither do I condemn you." I
Yes.
just want to read from page 192.
Okay.
Where she says, in relationship. Well, let me start here. Dr. Hernandez says, I used to believe the sin Jesus refers to is idolatry, but now I realize her true sin was letting a violent empire control her and her community.
Yes.
She says, my heart flutters at the thought of Jesus saying, neither do I condemn you. These are words that I need to hear on my own healing journey. They are a gift I want to give to those who are on their own journey toward liberation. And she gives these examples. She asks the question, are you learning how to advocate for yourself and others? I don't condemn you. Are you rejecting your allegiance to power? I don't condemn you. Are you dismantling white supremacist cisgender patriarchy? I don't condemn you. Are you disentangling yourself from purity culture? I don't condemn you. Are you decolonizing and de-imperializing? I don't condemn you. And so, because I was struggling with your take on the I condemn the sin part, but how I'm understanding it now, how I'm seeing it now, is the sin is when you own these false narratives about yourself, about who you are, right? When you own the oppressor's labeling of you and categorizing you, right? In present day, when we as women, are socialized to think and believe that we are subordinate, right? That owning that taking that on as our own, that is our sin. That is living beneath what God would have us to be and believe about ourselves. So when we take on those false identities and those false narratives imposed on us by empire, by culture, then that becomes our sin. That's how I see that.
And and I feel like the beautiful thing, and thank you for sharing that. Thank you for reading that page. And when I think of sin, and I'm canvassing Dr. Hernandez's, I'm canvassing the entire book, like all of the women profiled in The Hero and the Whore. And when I'm thinking about what is being dismantled, a part of what I feel is liberative is the idea that you do something to me, you steep me in this thing, and the fact that I don't know any differently makes it sin to me. You see, I feel that there is a way for us to accept. My mother would say this all the time. She's, it was funny. I sent her a message and I was like, you're a good mama. I like you. You've done good. I love you. And I really appreciate you being my mama. And then she sends a message back saying, I did the best that I could. And then she says, how'd I do? And I'm like, Mama, it's only been 55 years. I don't like the vote is still out, right? But as we were laughing about that, she also said, and this was her just being mindful of how it was not perfect. And so she said, I did the best I could with what I know. So when I'm thinking about all of the ways that empire has been effective at making us afraid of pleasure, it has been effective of keeping these constructs and these ideas deeply embedded in our well-being. It has been effective at getting us to operate against our own best interests. It has been effective in giving us a story, giving us a narrative, giving us an experience, giving us a label, giving us a definition that always centers what is best for them. So if that is what I'm steeped in, help me with how that's sin to me.
Right. What that is it what the in the Asian culture they would call Han, HAN. It is a sin against me. That's what that is. It is the empire is sinning against me. The oppressors are sinning against me. That's
Right.
not my sin.
Right.
Now,
Right.
my sin might be how I respond to it, right? If I accept it, if I embrace it, if I don't critique it, if I don't challenge it, if I don't, as you say, use my agency, right? Then that may be my sin. Let me read this question from Bianca. She says, could Jesus' compassion for this woman have considered why she may have committed adultery? Was her reason financial or survival? Just wondering if there was some other reason for Jesus' compassion. I think the answer is absolutely yes. In that culture, what does it mean for a woman to commit adultery? Minister Alexis Rome gave us the categories of adultery, of the definition of adultery in that time.
I'll go back to and one of those definitions,
and one of those
was
which we didn't even talk about. One of them was one who has been assaulted or raped.
Exactly.
So a woman who's been assaulted or raped would be called an adulteress, right? because a penis other than her husband's was inserted into her vagina, whether she asked for it or not. That's crazy, isn't it?
Crazy.
Right.
And see, that's the thing that really bothered me. Like this whole thing about being caught in adultery. This has been one of those passages that bugs me. It chaps me because just the whole logistics of it. First of all, the catching her and whoever was with her, and we don't know whether she might have been assaulted or raped.
Right.
She was just caught in adultery. And so I just, this whole thing, the go and sin no more. Dr. Irie, I highlighted the exact passage that you read about, the sin is letting a violent empire control her. And it was like that just unlocked some chains for me, because all this time the whole go and sin no more thing has really bothered me, because I was thinking about, he's saying don't commit adultery again, and to know that it's about her take is on, it's about letting a violent empire control her. To me, it goes in line with the scriptures, uh, who is set free is free indeed. And Jesus
Right.
saying, I came that you might have life and that more abundantly.
Yeah, yeah.
You can have life more abundantly if you refuse to let a violent empire control you, if you are breaking those chains. And so to me, that goes more in line with those scriptures. And I find a great deal of comfort and freedom in this filter, in this way of
Yeah.
putting it.
Yeah. And let me give something practical right now. Do y'all understand how if certain people, if certain pastors, preachers, church women were to be on this Bible study right here tonight, do you know how we would be labeled? This
Do
is
you?
a dangerous Bible study. Do you
Well,
understand what I'm saying?
yeah. And
Just us teaching along these lines,
yeah.
we would be labeled. And
Well,
so what do we do with that? Hey, it
We're
ain't
not
gonna
going
stop
to
this show,
answer to it.
right?
yeah. I have a sister friend who is, she's not a Christian, and but she was really fascinated about this study. And so she's working tonight, and she had asked, like, is it going to be on YouTube? Like, I'd really like to watch it. Now, what intrigued her was the idea that we were not holding up the traditional ideas
Uh-huh.
about this conversation. That broke through to her as a thinking and reasoning person who has not been steeped in something, in a way of seeing and
Yeah.
holding the line concerning that. And so as I was talking with her about, the like, my presentation tonight, I had said to her that one of the reasons why I was very happy to accept this assignment was that God has in me someone who does not center what someone else thinks about this. So the idea that
Uh-huh.
someone would come on here and be like, "Oh my God, do you know how you label?" Like, I don't care about what you're labeling me. It's not
Yeah,
what you call me, is what I answer to. And I
exactly.
understand the directive is for liberation. And
Yes,
if your mission is bondage and shackled, okay,
yes,
well, we are not
yes.
aligned. And so I'm gonna need you to,
And
like,
and
to
that
the
might
left.
have been,
Yeah.
and maybe that's Jesus' message to
Absolutely, I
one
believe.
of Jesus' message to her. Listen,
That's
Omalara has a couple of comments. She says, "So is our sin not embracing our full selves and our humanity, because the empire doesn't want us to see ourselves as free." My God, my God.
absolutely,
Then
absolutely,
she says, "The imperialist patriarchal society is upheld not only by men, but by women, but also
absolutely,
by women." Yes,
absolutely,
absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah.
Sometimes even
Absolutely.
more fervently
Omalara,
by
I
women.
don't know you. Let me say this. Omalara, I don't know you, sis, but I'm so glad you're here
I
tonight.
know. Thank you, everyone who was on the call.
I'm
Thank you
so
so
glad
much.
you're here tonight.
I
Cindy
appreciate this.
Cindy Canty Dumas says, Dr. Hernandez stated, "Call me a whore, but never forget I'm the hero too." This was a very empowering perspective.
Absolutely. 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 Yes. Well, again, I keep going back to the idea of I don't want us, here it is. I don't want us to take on any shame
Right.
about about what we have been steeped in. What my mother said, I don't know if I had finished the comment. She said, like, I did the best with what I knew. And I think that there is in that, sometimes I hear that she's like, I wish I would have done more. I wish I'd have done it differently, but I did the best with what I knew. And what I am feeling that Dr. Hernandez is ultimately leading us to is dismantling shame, not taking any part
Mhm.
of the empire's intention to get
Right.
us to center them, to figure out how to not let them think that we are whatever it is that they call whatever it is that they're like. There's a bigger work that we are being called to, and I think that when we fall into the lines of like, I should be ashamed for what I have not done more of. Well, why haven't we done more of it? Well, we haven't done more of it because there's depression, there's exhaustion, there is
Mhm.
trauma that we've not dealt with. There is the hard work of just keeping our head above water. There
Mhm.
is the fact that we don't have enough time to do all of the things that we're supposed to do. And now I got to do this healing work too. You healing work and being that is intentional, that is hard. And I have given up blaming
Mhm.
anyone or shaming anyone who does not take that work, because there have been sacrifices and there has been sadness en route to me being engaging perfect self-expression. It has not been easy. And so for others who
Right.
have not done that work, I am really careful, and I know that they should. I don't want to be on record saying shame on you for allowing Empire to continue this foolish work. Shame on you for not doing more. I would
Yeah.
rather say, hey, listen, here is an opportunity. And what I hear Jesus saying to her when he says, go and sin no more, I still hear in my sanctified imagination, I hear him saying, okay, look, you've seen this one way. You saw how it went that way. I'm gonna need you to go another way because there's a bigger thing that's happening. Like I just don't feel that the larger thing is the idea of the of the her being caught in adultery, because again, her being labeled an adulteress could have been her being raped and assaulted, and them they are not interested earnestly in honoring the law. They're trying to trap Jesus, and she's just kind of a pawn to that. But here are some of the things.
Right.
Here's one of here are three things that I have found that I believe are liberating in this text, as I was engaging Dr. Hernandez's content. Um, I believe that when the religious leaders collectively heard it, they went away one by one, which to me says that change is possible. So we're going to have to tell the whole story, right? And have a prophetic imagination about what it meant when they took what Jesus said, dropped the stone, one by one began to walk off. Then what happened? Did they regroup and go and find another and then try? No, I am um engaging my prophetic hope that change is possible. They heard it collectively, they went away one by one. And so they heard it, and I believe that's calling us to not hide our experiences or to silence our insights, because our words can create or recreate worlds. I believe that this conversation is powerful. I believe that everyone, even if we are not aligned in how we see it, does not mean that that it's not relevant for the good work that God prepared in advance for us to do. I think that there is something very powerful about us not trying to be a homogenous vat of chocolate milk where we all kind of pour in, and like whatever it is that we pour in, it's all the same substance, same color, texture, flavor. I think that there's something very powerful about honoring your own experiences and sharing them and not silencing your insight, confessing your filter, knowing that all of us are located. And in our location, how does that cause us to show up practicing perfect self expression and then permitting room for others to do the same? No more shame, but just a liberated way of being in the world. Thoughts?
Well, I don't have necessarily any thoughts about what you just said there. What dropped in my spirit, and I'm going back to the sin no more piece, the way this literature, all this biblical literature was written, it didn't have commas and periods and all that stuff when it was initially written. What came in my spirit was, I wonder, when Jesus said, go and sin no more, could he have been talking up to her accusers? Like, who was Jesus talking to when he said that? So to me, that's inviting me to really do some deeper study on the way this whole text was constructed. That's just, and I'm not saying that's the case, but that's what came in my spirit, and I can't let go of that right now. I want to do some more study on that. On that, go and sin no more. Who was Jesus actually talking to when he said that?
And
I just wonder.
Yeah, that's
anyway,
that. I have not. I had not ever considered that. That is, yeah, I hadn't considered that, because I'm thinking that when the text says they dropped their stones one by one, they left, that it was just Jesus and the woman. And when he's saying like we're your accusers, that it's just the two of them. But I'm still feeling like, and again, I believe that it is because of how I have engaged Dr. Hernandez this entire year. She is centering her particular experience. She is confessing her filter. This is how she has experienced this. And she is like, okay, as I am breaking my chains, I'm breaking others as well. I want all of us to experience this freely. I was fascinated that there was not her frame, which again takes me to the whole, like, okay, what we're not going to do is shame. We're not going to continue the shame cycle. There was no engaging on like right or wrong. The way I had always heard this text was there were two people who were wrong, and only one of the folks that was, quote, wrong was dropped at the feet of Jesus. She did not engage this content in that way. And I was fascinated by that. As I was parsing through and going through everything, I kept wondering and waiting. And then when I get to the end of the chapter and I see that she just flat out was like, okay, that's not where we're going here. That was very liberating. That was a liberating approach for me. I was like, yeah, why do we continue to tell the narrative in that way that continues to heighten the shame? What about the other things that we have not seen or that we have not discussed?
And Minister Alexis, I love what you just said about, the right and wrong, and how according to Dr. Hernandez, that's not the way she framed it, because that makes sense. Well, like I said, and to Dr. Irie, your point about who was Jesus talking to when he said, go and sin no more, I feel like it's been framed that the woman was sinning, because that also contributes to the patriarchal narrative that, of course, it's the woman that's sinning. And Jesus is saying to her, go and sin no more. Because of course it's the woman that was sinning.
Right.
And so
is anyone even worried about sin? It just feels like this was not a narrative about sin. Their intentions were not, we have to weed out the sin. It all feels
and
like
I
hustle.
hear you.
Oh no, It was subterfuge. The sin was subterfuge. Absolutely. I mean, what they considered sin was subterfuge, because their intention was to trick Jesus.
Right.
That was their intention.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Thoughts
from the audience. Feel free to comment, to place questions. What are y'all feeling?
Your mama, your mama she says Jesus saw beyond the condemning crowd, sensing her willingness to repent, send her forth to sin no more.
Okay, say that one more time. I'd be telling her, I was like,
she said,
keep it real. She's always trying to she's trying to be fancy in front of people. Okay, but let me
No, no,
hear
no,
it
no, no.
again.
She said Jesus saw beyond the condemning crowd. He sensed her willingness to repent, sent her forth to sin no more. That's what your mom said.
And I actually I can see that. This was not a person who was insisting on uh I like what I'm doing and I want to keep doing it. Uh it was like, oh wait, I got caught and let me, okay, this is bad and I don't want to be here again. And so Jesus sees no value in beating her over the head with this experience. He's like, okay, you get it. I don't do this. Like, yeah, yeah, this is a wrap. Okay. Okay.
Oh, let me see if there's anything on YouTube. We have to, okay, no, nothing about that. There are people that are really appreciative of this Bible study.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm like, listen, but that's what I love about and on the flyer it says Womanist Bible Exploration. I
Yeah.
feel like sometimes when we call it a study, there
Yeah.
is a sense that we're going to hold up the traditional narrative and that
Yes.
people can be pious and they can even half listen because they've heard the grand old story and they know, you know, how it's going to end and how we're going to parse it and how, you know, it's how it's going to be exegeted. But a womanist Bible exploration
Yes.
is a way for us to engage and a womanist Bible exploration focused on sex and sexuality and all of
Yeah.
the complexities
Mm-hmm.
for these the women that we have been studying
Yeah. Yeah.
in this. It has been extremely profound and I appreciate, just, you know, shout out to the writers, the womanist theologians who break it down like a fraction and give it to us in story form, as well as
That's
you
right.
know, just giving us the, you know, the scholarship, right? I was
Yeah,
really
and here's the thing. Here's the thing, Alexis. We also bring our own scholarship. Like you
absolutely,
bring yours, I bring
absolutely,
my. And that's the thing
yes.
about when you explore a text.
Exactly. Exactly. And I believe that we are honoring our Jewish forebears by arguing the text and coming from all of these different perspectives instead of
Yeah.
insisting on a homogenized perspective. That is
Yes, I
where our
agree.
Jewish forebears are all like they go at it. They're like
Yes,
earnestly going at it. And we are so busy trying to pour ourselves into a receptacle. So I appreciate this exploration. I appreciate Dr. Hernandez's approach because it has not been a one size fits all. It has been
that's right.
an opportunity for all of us to enter in wherever we are and to know that God will meet us there and but won't leave us there. Wherever we are, wherever we go from this space, based on this information, you know, the Lord goes with us. And I pray that this time has been rich, and the
It
conversation has been
has.
enriching. And
Hmm.
yes, other thoughts.
It has absolutely, positively been enriching. And I am so, this is what the Gathering of Womanist Church does. I mean, Dr. Hernandez, I believe, with this book has been talking back to the text.
Absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah,
And
yeah,
absolutely.
we
absolutely.
are talking back to the talking back. And so
Hmm.
it's just been because all of the different um scriptures that we have looked through, so much
Yes.
of it has been put forth in ways that I never, ever, ever would have thought.
Mhm.
And so
Hmm.
it's like I had to go back and reread everything,
Hmm.
with this new eye. And it's just been such an example of using one's sanctified imagination,
Absolutely.
of engaging the scholarship. And I am so proud and so happy to be part of a community of faith, of a church that does this. Because I mean, wow.
Yeah. 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 I
Yeah, and
absolutely.
thank you for your bravery tonight, Alexis. Reverend Bianca says, great discussion tonight. Thank you for this brave conversation.
Yes. Yes. And you know what? It's so it's fascinating. Thank you, thank you, Reverend Bianca. I didn't consider this uh bravery. It just felt like, okay, what a grown folk at. See, I
I got
produce,
you. I got
yeah,
you.
I curate a weekly faith and adult storytelling series, Jesus, Jazz, and Dessert Wine, and
Mhm.
it is all about finding finding like-minded people who are not going to wince but are going to fully show up and say, okay, this is how I see it. This is what I got to say. And that feels so safe to me.
Mhm.
It doesn't feel courageous. It just feels safe to know that there are folks who also who are living the questions, who are
Well,
asking the questions,
and
living
you
the
have
questions.
you yeah, you curated that space though,
Yes, yes,
right? You curated it in such a way uh, that not only do you feel safe, but the people who give their input feel safe.
absolutely, absolutely,
And I
absolutely.
feel like that's the same way with the gathering. This is what we have curated. This is intentional.
Yes,
Um, and so the people who come, they may not have been used to
yes,
being in a safe space where they could share these things and talk about and question and
right.
challenge and all that without shame,
Yes,
without
right.
shame being
Yeah,
projected onto them. And
yes,
so we need more spaces
absolutely,
and communities where this kind of dialogue can take
absolutely.
place, because this is how we get free.
Absolutely, absolutely. I am convinced that God has not given up on us. I am convinced that the wise woman from Tekoa, who boldly, when her ruse was discovered, and she is before the king, she looks him square and says, "Listen, all of us will die eventually. Our lives are like water poured on the ground that cannot be gathered up again. But God does not sweep life away. Instead,
Mm,
God devises plans to bring us back when we've been separated, when we have been deceived, when empire has convinced us that we are not when we are. I believe that God
yeah.
is constantly doing a liberating work, and that work is not just happening with people who who are professing members of faith in Jesus Christ, but those who are curious about a different
Yeah.
way of being. And
Yeah.
in this space, I wanted wherever you were, for you to feel welcome and to feel warm. And if there were some scribes or some Pharisees that had some stones, I'm like, listen, I hear Jesus saying, look here, ye who were without sin, cast
Yeah.
the first stone.
Yeah.
You who ain't got no sex and sexuality situations that did not
Right.
get spotlighted. Go ahead
And
and throw. I feel like change is possible. I feel like we are all sexual beings, and I think that the courage that I have chosen some time ago is to simply not hide my experience or to silence my insight, to recognize that
I
not
sh-
everyone is going to agree.
mhm.
But I hear the Spirit of God say to me, okay, but what I say to you, but what I say,
I
okay, but
sh-
how do you see this? And you go and tell that. And in my doing that, I am making room for others to also have their say. So this has been an absolute amazing experience. Before we get off, I don't know if there are any
Oh,
other
hold on. I have two more comments
more comments. Okay.
from the socials. Um, Reverend Bianca said, "I'm so glad that our humanity is encompassed in sanctified." And
Absolutely.
then, Omalara says, "This is the work," and I need us to hear this. She says, "This is the work that brings people back to the church. It allows so many of us to remove the idea that to be Christian means that we need to uphold rules that don't allow us to feel whole and free. Oh my God. I'm
Ashe.
gonna copy and
Ashe.
paste that and post that somewhere.
That's a
Thank
whole
you,
word.
Omara.
Oh my
That is an
goodness.
entire word.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank
Preach.
See,
you,
yes.
sister.
Okay. So sister
Oh my
understands the
goodness.
assignment and the work and what is possible. God has not given up on us. And so my frame was to create space for everyone to enter in safely and for God to again meet us where we are, but not leave us where we're found. If you are in the Houston area, tomorrow, I am curating a Blue Christmas event at Crumville Bakery, where we will name our loss, name our hope, and nosh sweet treats. There'll be poetry, African drumming, and storytelling. So at 6 o'clock tomorrow, Thursday, December 19, at Crumville, there's the QR code for anyone who is watching in the Houston area. And if this happens to be a season for anyone who is just like, you're just not so merry, I just need you to know that it's okay to not be okay. I will encourage you to not self-isolate, but to see if there is a Blue Christmas event or a longest night event or something where you can gather with like-minded people who may also be feeling blue during the holidays. And prayerfully these spaces the space will make room for you to be fully present with your loss, with your grief, and also to name your hope and to know that all is well and all will be well. So with that.
All right. Thank you. We have one more comment from Reverend Dr. Sherry Brown Jackson.
Oh,
She
Dr.
said, I just wrote,
Sherry.
she said, I just rose to say that God does not expose everything, and I am grateful.
Yes.
Ashe.
Ashe. Ashe.
Ashe.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
we want to invite everybody to join us this Saturday for our virtual service at the gathering, 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. I will be preaching from Luke chapter 1. My sermon is titled When There Is No Peace. When There Is No Peace. Want to
Wow.
thank you, Alexis Roan, for this is what your third Bible exploration that you've taught, I think. Thank you
Yes.
for
Yes.
volunteering.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Reverend Tracy. Thank you, Carol, who has been just a faithful
Yes.
Bible exploration attendee. Also, Cindy Dumas was here. She didn't come on the Zoom, but she was in the on YouTube. We also want to thank Tracy Jones. We want to thank Bianca. We want to thank, who else? Emma. We want to thank, let me go back over to YouTube and make sure I thank everybody there. We want to thank Pastor Terrace. We want to thank our sister, PhD Reed, Omalara, and Brianna T. Okay, yeah. Want to thank all y'all for joining us tonight. And all of those who may watch this later on the rerun.
Yes. Yes.
We appreciate you for joining us. We will be back next year in 2025 in some capacity for a Womanist Bible exploration. I'm not sure of which book we're going to be exploring. If y'all have ideas or suggestions, please shoot them to me. You can DM me. Join me on Facebook at the Gathering. A Womanist Church. Join me on my personal Facebook page, Irie Lynn Session, and DM me and let me know your thoughts. All right. Alexis, you want to close us out in prayer?
Yes. If everyone will take just a deep breath with me. I believe that every breath that we breathe, we speak the name of God. God's name is etched on every breath we take. That's what you do with what you create. You put your name on it. creating God, thank you. Help us. We trust you. We believe in you. Thank you. Wow us. Liberate us. Make us worthy of your call, and by your power, fulfill in us every good purpose of ours and every act prompted by our faith. And in that way, your name will be glorified because of the way we live, and our name along with it. Ashe, Selah, Amen, and so be it. Good night, everyone. God bless.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Someone asked on YouTube before I hang up about our do we meet every Wednesday? Our Womanist Bible Exploration meets the fourth Wednesday of each month. We'll keep the same schedule next month, but our worship services are each Saturday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, and we are here on YouTube. We are also on Facebook Live. We have an app. Download the Gatherings app on Google Play and the App Store. You just do a search for the Gathering Womanist Church and download our app. All right. Love you all. Thank you again so much, Minister Alexis. We appreciate you so much. We'll be in touch to see if maybe, next year you could be on our schedule. Same with you, Reverend Tracy, to do some more exploring.
Absolutely.
Amen.
All right.
Amen.
Enjoy
Blessings.
the evening. Bye-bye.
Okay.